At AARP Missouri, we want to support you as you age. But first, you should learn a little more about us. AARP is a nonprofit organization working to help adults 50 plus in Missouri live their lives to the fullest. We advocate for over 700,000 members on important issues such as strengthening Social Security, protecting access to health care, and ensuring everyone has independence and choice as they age. AARP Missouri also offers online tools, resources, and programs you can access right from the comfort of your home. Learn how to protect yourself from fraud and scams with the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Become an active part of AARP Missouri as a virtual volunteer. Find support while caring for a loved one through our caregiving resources. And enjoy a variety of fun virtual events that improve your health and wellness, like our exercise series, Moving It. At AARP Missouri, there's an entire community waiting for you. Learn more about us at aarp.org/mo.
Thank you for joining AARP Missouri for our virtual series, Brain Matters. I'm Sheila Holm, Community Outreach Director for AARP Missouri, and I'm so happy to be able to share this live presentation with you. As part of AARP's mission, we work to enhance the lives of all people 50 plus and their families. We have resources and information online at aarp.org/mo, and information about AARP activities and events at aarp.org/local. Our efforts to help people live their best lives includes many things. Virtual options like this one are good for caregivers or anyone who faces challenges attending in-person events. We also have resources for protecting yourself against fraud through online information and local shred events. We're working on livable communities, which goes beyond housing and transportation to include things like our virtual community center, online fitness classes referenced earlier, in-person walk with a doc, and today's series, Brain Matters. We hope you will take advantage of AARP's resources and information. Again, go to aarp.org/local to find out more about what we have to offer. Now, I'd like to introduce Jeremy Korber, Community Programs Director for the Greater Missouri chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Jeremy, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for partnering with us. It's awesome to be here.
So, Jeremy, most of us believe we know enough about Alzheimer's Association, but for those that us, kind of iffy, would you share a bit more about your organization?
Absolutely. We do a lot of things. So the association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementias by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction, early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. The Alzheimer's Association is a global leader in providing and promoting quality care and support. And every year, millions of individuals and families worldwide connect to our programs and services, all offered free of charge. This includes a robust website at alz.org, our 24/7 helpline, and education programs, support groups, early stage programs offered both in person and virtually. And Sheila, now that we have 2 FDA-approved treatments available, our work to help people receive an early and accurate diagnosis is actually more urgent now than ever before.
When I first started with AARP, your organization was one of the first I connected with. And I was amazed at all of the free services your organization provides, not only for the individual who may be diagnosed with a form of dementia, but the caregivers and their families. And it is just inspiring, truly inspiring. Okay, so I went totally off script there. So So thank you so much for that overview, Jeremy. But really, people are here to hear about and hear from Brenda, joy for the holidays and how we can make our holidays the best that they can be with our loved ones. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. And for everybody on tonight's program, if you have questions or comments, please put those in the chat and we will make sure to address those as we go. It's also my pleasure to introduce my friend Brenda. I've got a script that I will follow for the most part. Um, she has maybe my most favorite laugh on the planet. She'll do it at some point. I know she will. But Brenda is a credentialed dementia specialist who focuses on behavioral expressions, communication, and direct caregiving methods. She leads B Growth Dementia Education and serves as the National Director of Memory Care for a large senior living provider. She's a longtime volunteer community educator for the Alzheimer's Association, double dipping between Missouri and Colorado. I forget how many she has done, but it's well over, I think, 250. I mean, you're solid, and has also been on Denver 7 ABC Everyday Hero. She's a treat. She's a joy. Enjoy it, Brenda. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. And thank you, Sheila and Diane and everybody else on the call tonight. Brenda Gurung, she, hers. I am super excited to facilitate this webinar tonight. And Sheila, I was remembering we did the travel tips last summer with AARP, and that was super awesome. So thank you for all the work you and AARP do for our communities as well. Tonight's session, let me get my screen up. Okay, I think that's coming through. So tonight's session is called Finding Joy in the Season. And I want to acknowledge Jeremy. Jeremy, I think this was your brainchild a number of years ago. It seems like maybe 4 or 5 now that we started doing this workshop series. And I thank you for inviting me to share. This is a session that I really enjoy because I think for all of us who have a person who is on a dementia journey, the holidays can be a mixed bag, right? Sometimes it is joyous and incredible, and sometimes our person gets off their routine and is harder. And sometimes with all of the festivities and activities, and it's the dark time of the year, and all of those things can also make it challenging for us and our person. So today, we're going to talk through 4 main topics. Number 1, we're going to talk through simple modifications you can make to celebrate the holidays with your person who is on a dementia journey. And let me just say at the start, we're going to be talking about your person tonight, and maybe your person has a diagnosis. Maybe it's Alzheimer's, maybe it's frontal temporal or Lewy body or something else. Maybe they don't have a diagnosis. Maybe you are watching this webinar sort of preemptively because maybe you're seeing some changes in your person. So we also want to highlight some changes that you may see and the support that the Alzheimer's Association and AARP offer to you. We are definitely, I think I can speak for AARP. I know I can speak for the Alzheimer's Association. We are in it with you. I'm a longtime volunteer. I keep volunteering because it's such a great organization who does so much for so many. So that's our first topic, simple ways to modify a holiday celebration so your person can be successful. The second topic we're going to talk through are some travel tips for your person who is on a dementia journey. I think for some of us, sometimes the day-to-day is hard, and then we add in the holidays and the busyness of the season and travel, and it can just feel like up to here. So we want to talk through some simple, practical, actionable steps and support you can take. Number 3, we will talk through, excuse me, I apologize. We'll talk through There's a specific tool that the Alzheimer's Association gives us related to behavioral expressions. And so we'll talk about that for our person. Maybe our person gets easily irritated or turned around, or maybe they see themselves at an earlier time in their life, or maybe they have difficulty communicating. We'll talk through some strategies to help with that. And the number 4, Jeremy and Sheila already addressed, but you'll see a slide on resources through the Alzheimer's Association, and you have in the chat resources from AARP as well. I am keeping an eye on the chat, so if anything jumps out at you as we talk tonight, or anything isn't clear, you have a question, or if something is super helpful, or you're like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to use that, by all means, put it in the chat. I'm going to watch as we communicate. I want this to be a dialogue for us tonight. So our first category is ways that we can modify celebrations. And I feel the need to preempt this with 2 things. One, I think many of us in society, we hear Alzheimer's or we hear dementia, and we think memory loss, right? I think that's what most people think of. But there's so much else going on in the various dementias, and mild cognitive impairment and other things that are going on cognitively that impact our person's ability to go through the day. And so those might be impacts to visual processing or decision making, or the ability to track conversations, or to navigate a space, or just to navigate the busyness of an environment. All of those factors definitely come into play during the holiday season. We tend to do stuff at all hours. We tend to do long days of engagements. We have a lot of people around. Sometimes we travel. Sometimes we're in busy places. And all of that can be amplifying for our person. The other thing I want to highlight, I alluded to before, but I also recognize this time of year, you may be seeing your person maybe with fresh eyes, or maybe you haven't seen your person in a bit. And so maybe you're seeing some concerns or curiosity in your person. And there's also some stuff you want to watch for if you haven't seen them in a while. Things that may alert you to something else may be going on, and your person may need additional support, whether they are on a journey with a particular form of dementia, or if something else is going on. So that's kind of our first 2 baseline thoughts to keep in mind. So I'd encourage you, as we think of the upcoming holiday season, sometimes more is less. And what are the holiday celebrations or the rituals within your own family, the traditions within your own family? What are the ones that are the most important to your person? And then also, what are the ones that are most important to you? I think part of where we sometimes get ourselves into a corner this time of year is we try to do all the things. And it is totally okay for you to choose to do just some of the things, or just those engagements or rituals or celebrations or traditions that are most meaningful to you or your person. There may be some traditions and rituals that you still choose to do, but you feel like, gosh, you know what? This isn't as important to mom as it was never as important to her as it was to me. Maybe I'm not going to have mom do this thing, but I'm going to have her focused on the things she really enjoys. But it's super important to me, so I'm still going to go do it. I'm going to make sure I get some support to make sure she's okay, she has what she needs. But I'm going to do this for me, so I keep my cup full. If you need permission, you totally have permission to say no to some of the things that you've always done, especially if you're thinking about, we do the chili day, and we do the gifts, and we do the tamales, and we do the faith community. Like, we do so many things, and sometimes it's too much for us and our person. Second simple modification is to consider the time of day that you host your events. And so you may consider, especially if you tended to do particular rituals or celebrations in the evening and the late afternoon, stacked up a bunch of things through the day, you may choose to focus those activities earlier in the day. So it's super common, though not every person who is on a dementia journey, but super common for individuals to experience what we call sundowning. So this often occurs in the late afternoon, early evening. Of course, after the time change, that it seems to occur earlier. But it's a time of day in which our person, the language I use is they can become more amplified, right? Maybe more confused, maybe quicker to emotion or quicker to reaction, quicker to behavioral expressions. Maybe they tend to pace, or they become anxious, or they're seeking something or someone. Especially if your person has difficulty in the late afternoon and early evening, by all means, move those celebrations earlier in the day. What we're looking for here is modification so your person can be successful in the engagement that's meaningful to them. So just because we've always done it at 7 o'clock when I was a kid and growing up doesn't mean we need to do it at 7 o'clock at night now. For many of our people who are on a journey, earlier in the day is the time that their brain is brighter. It's the time that they are a little bit more fluid, a little less quick to reaction and emotion. And sometimes it can be a more successful time of day for them and therefore for everybody. Our next simple modification is to consider smaller gatherings. And so I say this cautiously because every year we talk through this, I think about, some of us, we have these big gatherings with our families or families of choice or in our wider community. And sometimes that is so meaningful to our person. And other times, having that many people and busyness and babies and dogs and hollering and singing and so many things can become amplifying to our person. Jeremy, I was thinking about that former board member, and she was a part of the original Finding Joy in the Holidays, this workshop. And I remember her talking about just the busyness of some of the celebrations and even like the decor and like so many things, how it felt overwhelming to her. So you may find for your family or family of choice that smaller engagements might be more beneficial for your person. I remember there was a family, gosh, it's probably been about 10 years ago now. And I met them right after some, I think it was like a family birthday or something. And they said, we really just had too many people in the house. Our person was overwhelmed. They didn't really have a quiet spot to be. It was too much. And so they were already planning for the next celebration. Okay, what we're going to do it earlier in the day. We're going to have a smaller gathering, and we're going to have a quiet space where she can go to regroup, to rest. They were even talking about a quiet space where she can be and people can come to see her, so she didn't have to navigate the busyness of everything. The fourth modification that we see here on the screen is manage the environment. So, and I want to take a step back because I don't know how this is coming off. I don't know if it's coming off that I think our person is, so decrepit and unable. But what I am referencing is that our person, not always, but often, who is on a dementia journey, has difficulty when there are a lot of things going on at once. So one thing we'll talk about outside of the holidays is maybe my person goes to a faith community and they have always gone to the one that's the big, loud, busy one. And now it starts to be like kind of too much to process, too many people to say hello to, too noisy, too much movement. For some of our people, as they progress on their journey, it's helpful to just make the environment more manageable, not so busy and loud and a lot of people talking at once. I think about my own group. We're a lot of loud talkers, right? And I say something and somebody else interrupts and then somebody else interrupts to make a joke. And it's just too much talking over and not enough slowness and time and the ability for my person to be able to listen, hear, process, respond. So you may find that it's helpful to make the environment itself, whether it's the home, the location you go, the restaurant, whatever it is, make that environment more manageable, not so big. Topic number 5 is consider the location of the gathering. So this is both when we think about travel, and we'll talk about travel tips in a sec, but also just the space. Is there, maybe your person is earlier in their journey and maybe they have always hosted, or their spouse or their partner has always hosted. And maybe it's a temptation for them, or they feel an obligation that they've always hosted, they need to host. But maybe that just adds too much more for them to feel responsible or always feel like they have to be on, or too much to navigate, or just too many people in their space. We know in general, as a generalization, a person who's on a journey often benefits from routine, especially when we figure out the routine that's in balance for our person. So, like, I'm a slow waker upper. I do better if the morning starts out easy, not a lot of food and chatter, and then I kind of ease into it, and then I'm on and ready. So maybe our person likes to get up easy, or maybe they're up ready to go early in the morning. And maybe we find that they do really well if they get outside every afternoon. It kind of resets their circadian rhythm, helps them to sleep at night. Maybe they find they really like to be a part of the lunch preparation, but not so much the dinner preparation. Or maybe they like to help around the house. Whatever, excuse me, whatever is the routine that is beneficial to our person, we want to try to protect that as much as we can, even in, and especially in, this time of year with the holidays. I know I saw something in the chat. Yes, the Alzheimer's Association said small groups she could handle, large parties overwhelmed her. Yes, that's exactly who I'm thinking of. And frankly, many of our people have that experience. Okay, so if you're counting, this number 6. Build in plenty of time for rest for your person. If we were in a room together, I would say, show of hands. Have you ever had a day in which you did too many things in one day, or tried to pack too many things in for your person? Maybe it's not the holidays and you say, hey, let's get up. We'll get a coffee early and we'll go to the park and then we'll go to the appointment and then we'll go to the other thing. And by the end of the day, your person's just like, what? And I know I've worked in communities for a long time. We would sometimes see that, especially around the holidays. People would come visit and there would just be so many things packed into a day. And by the end of the day, the person is just like either bursting from too much stimulation, bursting because they didn't get enough rest or didn't get enough quiet time, or their routine wasn't maintained. So you may find just simple periods of rest are beneficial, even during and especially during this time of year. So maybe in the previous years, you would have long, day-long visits. Maybe you shorten those, or you make sure to build in time for an afternoon nap or rest or just regroup. Just making sure that your person has that rhythm throughout the day to rest, engage, rest, engage. I'm checking the chat. I don't see any questions or comments. But just like I said before, if there's something that's jumping out at you or something you really like or is helpful, or a question that sparked, or something I'm sharing that isn't clear, by all means, put that in the chat and I'll see it. So, number 7, will there be guests who haven't seen your person in a while? So, we may have on the line tonight some what I call primary or secondary caregivers. We may have some supporting caregivers on the line, or neighbors or professionals. Um, this time of year, we'll tend to have people come in from out of town or come in to visit who maybe haven't seen our person in a while. This may be a great time before the celebrations to reach out to that group or that person and say, hey, I wanted to let you know what's going on with Dad these days. I know the last time you saw him, he was super communicative and you had a great visit. Right now, he seems to be kind of, he's perseverating a little bit. He seems a little bit more anxious. He's often asking about his sister, and I think he's kind of anxious looking for her, and doesn't understand that that she's no longer here. And so just these simple updates to prepare your family or family of choice with where your person's at today so they can be successful. Now, sometimes, and as an out of town person myself, I know sometimes when I come to visit a person, they kind of like brighten up because I haven't been there in a while. And it's, we have a special time together. So, but it can be helpful to regroup either as a group, as a family of choice, or just one on one with people who might be coming in who haven't visited in a while to get on the same page. Now, Jeremy, I know we are recording. If anybody wants this recording or wants their people to be able to watch this, maybe that out of town or that supporting person, would you either unmute or let us know in the chat if they, how they'll be able to watch and share this?
I can.
Oh,
I
great.
can.
Oh, excellent. Good, Diane. Go ahead.
I have a little echo, sorry. We will have it at aarp.org/brain matters. And so we will do a follow-up email with that link in there.
Amazing. Okay, thank you. I think that was Diana. Thank you. Excellent. So some of you might be thinking like, oh, I asked my sister to join this call. I don't see her on the invite. I wanted her to listen. If you are finding this information to be helpful, you definitely will have access to the recording. I see in the chat, one ask I thought was brilliant from a friend whose mother had dementia. Oh yes, Diane, I was just about to say this. She asked us to give context through a story from childhood when we talked to her mother. So not every person who is on a dementia journey has this experience, but it is super common that our person may be more, how I say, like rooted at an earlier time in their life emotionally. And so, and they may see me and they haven't seen me for a while and can't quite place how we know each other, or they may see themselves at an earlier time. So a couple of different strategies here, especially for those people who haven't visited in a while. You may be beneficial to just introduce your name and not your title. So your name is like, hey, uncle, it's me, Brenda, your niece. So that's name and title. But just name is, hey, Robert, it's Brenda. So just starting with your name rather than your orientation. Sometimes that is helpful, especially if your person sees themselves at an earlier time in their life. I remember there was a family member I worked with years ago in Seattle, and he would not call his mom because she saw herself at an earlier time in her life. And it would irritate her when he would call her mom because she was like, that's not like, I don't have any kids. She saw herself younger. So he would call her by her first name. And that made their relationship so much smoother. They could still visit. He said they could visit in ways that they didn't visit before because now she saw him more as a friend than as a son. So that's one idea, is to introduce without title. The other idea is what Diane said. And both are great, and both may be applicable for your person depending on where they're at. The idea that Diane shared is the opposite. Like, don't just say who you are, but have a reminiscence with your person. So you might say something like, oh my gosh, Uncle, I gotta say, I still remember the time I was just a kid and you took me to go fishing for the first. Remember we dumped over in the canoe? Oh my gosh, I cannot, I still feel wet from that day. So something like that might also connect your person to you and give you a thing that you can visit about or reminisce about or share about. I will often hear from families and families of choice, I don't know how to visit my person anymore. We used to talk about these things. We used to do these things together. Now where they're at in their journey, I'm not sure what to ask about or tell about. And so if you find yourself in that position with your person, having kind of some ready stories from their past, especially their early past, might be a great way to reminisce together. Excellent. Good job, Diane. Ramona says, I'd like, oh, yes, I'm with you, Ramona, definitely. Excellent that you'll have the recording for your people. So number 8 is, let's not forget the caregiver in all of this. I know I talk a lot. I know my colleagues and I, we talk a lot about the person who is on a dementia journey. But I guess we could say we all are on a dementia journey because we are with our person. So we need to remember the caregiver, the care partner in all of this. If we are like a supporting team member, let's ask that primary care partner, what can I do to help? I'm really serious about it. I want to be more helpful to you in the winter. And maybe you offer up some specifics. Hey, I'm happy to come and shovel the drive. Or, I know how much Uncle liked to go to the park. Maybe I'll come every Saturday and take him to the park. We can do that together. Or would it help you if oh my goodness, I didn't plug in my laptop. Let me get my cord. Okay, thank you. So offering specific support to that caregiver is sometimes super helpful. I will often hear from caregivers, I need help, but I don't know what to ask. Or I need help, but I just don't even know where to start. So sometimes if we're a supporting team member, it's helpful for us to offer up some ideas. And then caregivers on the line, I'm going to encourage you, take just a sec. I'm going to keep talking, but you don't listen for a sec. And you think about, what are 2 things you need help with, or 2 things that would be helpful to you, and have those like in your pocket and ready to ask. For you, it might be, oh my gosh, I would love it if somebody would come sit with my person once in a while. So I can clear my head. I can go for a walk. I can go for, get my hair cut, whatever it is that you would like to do that's for yourself. So maybe you'd like somebody to sit with you. Maybe you'd like somebody to join a support group with you, or pick up some item that is a pain for you to get, help with something around the house. Any of those things, I just encourage you, be ready for what are 2 things that would be helpful to you. Sometimes I think as supporting team members, we mean well, but we're not sure what to offer, right? Or sometimes we say, hey, let me know if ever I can help. And we really mean it, but then we don't ask again, right? So I'd encourage you, primary caregivers on the line, think of something that you're going to be ready to ask. Ramona says, how to respond when the person wants to do something, yes, that doesn't exist anymore, like harvest a field. Yes, I totally hear you, Ramona. Ramona, I'm going to address that in just a sec after we talk through the travel tips. That's good. Don't let me forget. So travel tips. And we were specifically thinking, this came from the AARP and the workshop whenever, I think last summer. And this is also from a workshop created by Ben Molina of the Alzheimer's Association. Some specific tips to think about when your person is traveling. And so I'm especially, when I talk about this, I'm thinking of bigger trips like a flight, a train, a bus, a car ride that's a long time. But it could be anything for you. So the first step is that if you haven't already, you might check with your person's primary physician and just say, hey, we're planning on a trip. It's this type of trip. It's the flight is this long or the drive is this long. Is there anything we should know or anything I should be aware of? Just to get that feedback from your medical provider. Then the best mode for travel. Um, I will often think about in the families that I have assisted over the years. Sometimes a flight is fast, but then, oh my goodness, the rigmarole of like you have to get to the airport early, and then the airport is so busy and hard and so far, right? I live in Denver, and that airport is ginormous, and so you might find that one way to travel is shorter, but kind of more complicated, or it doesn't give you in your person time to like stretch your legs. Just take a moment and think about if the shortest route or fastest route is always the best. Where will you be staying? Do you need special accommodations? You may be wanting or able to stay with family or family of choice friends. You may want to stay in a lodging place. And if so, what sort of things do you need to keep in mind? Do you need a room on the first floor? Do you just the opposite? Do you want a room that's further up? Do you want a space that's quiet? Do you want, like, what are the things that would help it be comfortable? I'm thinking of a couple people. They wanted to make sure they got a hotel room, wanted to make sure that it had a kitchenette that they could, have that oatmeal in the morning or kind of keep to their normal routine. The best time to travel. So is it time of day? If your person sundowns, maybe better to try to stack the deck earlier in the day. The length of the trip. If you're going for a particular festivity or celebration or tradition, you might find that it's easy to go a day early, have sort of a day to rest, and then the thing. Or you might find that's just too much to manage and keep track of. Good best practice is to have your itinerary, share it with your travel companions, your emergency contacts, your support, and then to give yourself ample time. There is the Parkinson's podcast, the Davis Finney Foundation, and then Davis Finney Foundation has some great podcasts on traveling with Parkinson's. And Parkinson's does not necessarily have a dementia related to it. It can, but this idea of just time, that to build in time to get lost, to use the restroom twice, and to have the incontinence products be a pain. Just try to give yourself and your person time. We've done before where we plan to have snacks and we pack those with us. Sometimes we pack a favorite lunch with us. Sometimes we plan to get that at the location. But just having time for all the things to go wrong that are hard in travel. Some essentials that you'll want to keep with you. You want what I think of as a go bag. Your bag with you that has the medication and extra medication, not just the ones that are needed for the trip. The itinerary, a change of clothes, right? Snacks, water, engagement supplies that are meaningful to your person. So your person might enjoy a crossword or might enjoy a particular music, or maybe there's a story you read aloud together. Whatever it is, something that can help give them purposeful engagement. Prescriptions, additional medication. Also keep a list of the meds and dosages. So you may have through your provider, there may be an online portal, you have all of that. If you don't, it's good best practice to have your med list always, to have it either physically have a go bag or have it on your device but something where if you're in a bind, you're not having to look it all up. And then you might find that like a MedMinder or planner or something like that is helpful. I forget oh yeah, good. Okay. And then the other documents you want to keep with you. Providers' names and contact information. If you get in a bind and need some help, it is easier to pull out your sheet or pull it up on your device than to try to be looking for it. Food or drug allergies, and then definitely copies of legal papers like power of attorney, emergency contacts, insurance card, ID photos, that sort of thing. Super, super helpful. We don't want anything to go wrong, but if something goes wrong, it's much easier to have those things and not be in a panic trying to figure it out. Okay. So Diane put in the chat, 100 plus ways you can help caregivers, a list from oh my gosh, good job, Diane. I didn't know about that list. 100 plus ways you can help caregivers, a list from the Alzheimer's Association. That link is in the chat. Good job, Diane. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Ramona's question about how to respond when the person wants to go do something that doesn't exist anymore, like harvest a field. So this can be very common in the dementia journey. Not every person, maybe not your person as we're talking tonight, but very often many individuals on a dementia journey at some point will, how I describe it is they will be emotionally rooted at an earlier time in their life, or they will maybe have some element of confusion and don't recognize the space and the time that they're in. So your person may live with you and they may say, I got to get out of here. I got to get home. The kids are waiting for me. And you're like, oh, like I'm your kid. You may be reacting and thinking, I am in a different time than my person sees themselves. Your person may not recognize this space as their home. They may be seeking someone. They may ask, have you seen my mother? And in that moment, they might be asking for their mother, or they might be asking for something that's close but similar, but not quite. So maybe they say mother, but they mean sister or daughter or spouse. Or they may simply be seeking something and not have the other words to say it. So I think of many individuals I've known over the years, especially if they're later in their journey. Sometimes language can be hard for them. And so it's hard to have the words and the concepts to be able to express how I'm feeling, especially if I'm feeling uncertain or scared, or I don't know where I am or what I'm supposed to be doing, and I need comfort. I may not have those words, and the only words I may have might be, I need my mom, because she would help in those things. For me, she would help in those things. And so your person may be communicating to you kind of like in the best way that they're able, where they at and where they see themselves. And there's a ton of different ways to reply to this, Ramona. My favorite by far is the validation method. And this was created by Naomi Feil, and that's Feil. And this is how I describe it. It's more complicated than this, but I think this is a simple way to say it. The validation method means I reply to my person with empathy and curiosity. So if my person says, I got to get out of here, I need to get home, the kids are waiting, I don't say, Uncle, you live with me now. I don't say, Uncle, I'm your niece. Like you didn't have kids. I'm your person. I'm the one you're looking for. I don't say any of that. It's all reality. But my person is in a different state of mind and a different emotional thing that they are feeling and seeking. And so validation would tell us we respond with empathy and curiosity. If my person says, I got to get out of here, I got to get home, I say, tell me about home. Or they say, the kids, they need me. I say, oh my gosh, the kids, how old are they? What do they need? I'm curious and responding. And some of us are panicking right now and thinking like, no way will that ever work. It'll just make my person more upset. But at least what I have found, the opposite is true. Let's take just a moment. Don't think about our person. Just think about ourselves. Have you ever had a day when you're just frustrated, right? You're just like, ugh, everything went wrong. You're so irritated. Like work was hard. Your person was irritated. Like all of it went wrong. You fell in a puddle, whatever. And you want to talk to your person. You want to talk to your favorite person, the person that you vent to. And you say to them, all these things are wrong. I can't believe it. It's such a mess. What a mess of a day. You want them to emotionally react to you. You don't want them to say like, that didn't happen. You live here now. Everything was fine. You didn't fall in a puddle. None of that is helpful if that is how you feel. If you feel that your day was a mess and frustrating and all this stuff went wrong, you want your person to reply with empathy. Oh my gosh, that must have been awful. Oh my gosh, let me give you a hug. To reply with empathy and curiosity. So if our person is looking for someone or they're needed or they see themselves at an earlier time in their lives, one way to reply is with empathy and curiosity. Tell me about that. Reply with emotion. Oh my gosh, that must have been awful. Or, yeah, you did so good with those kids. Or, yeah, I know you harvested. You did. Was that with the big tractor or was that when you had the garden at home? And start asking those questions. It is nervous for us, right? Because we don't know where it's going to go. But we give our person that emotional outlet. If I had a rough day, I want you to be in it with me and respond, not tell me it didn't happen. Okay. I hope that's helpful, Ramona. Okay. Our second to last section is on behavioral expressions. And I talk a lot about behavioral expressions, but I don't always say what that is. So a behavioral expression is an old language. It was a behavior. It's like when our person reacts. So our person who is living with dementia may become easily frustrated, may not recognize me and be suspicious that I'm there to help, may think I've stolen from them, may not want to take a shower or use the restroom, like they don't recognize where the restroom is and they urinate in the closet. All sorts of kind of like problematic actions or reactions. Those are behavioral expressions. And so as caregivers and care partners, sometimes it feels like they come out of nowhere. Like, what is happening? My person is so mad, or they blame me all the time because they put their thing in a weird location. Now they think I stole it. Or my person's paranoid, or they're suspicious, or hallucinating, whatever the case may be. So the message here is that behavioral expressions come from something. They don't just happen out of the blue. And if you're seeing the screen right now, there are 5 common triggers of behavioral expressions. Now, there's other stuff. These aren't the only things that trigger behavioral expression. There's one more that's not listed that I'll share. But these are possible root causes that our person is reacting to. And depending on where our person is at in their journey, they may not be able to tell us that this root cause is happening. But the reaction, the behavioral expression is how they tell us. So if our person is having a behavioral expression, I want to encourage you, don't get mad, don't get irritated, don't be like, oh my gosh, my mom, but instead just shift your brain to say, what is my mom reacting to? What might be going on that this is the response? So 5 common categories. Number 1, pain or discomfort. And it's common, especially in the late stages of dementia, for an individual to experience pain but not be able to recognize or communicate that to us. And so I need to be a detective. I need to say, like, gosh, you know what? My person seems a little bit amplified today. I wonder what might be going on. You know what? I know she slipped on the ice a couple of days ago. I wonder if that might be what's going on. Or, oh my gosh, you know what? I noticed he's put on some weight. I notice right now those pants are a little tight. I wonder if that's kind of like constricting. Second category, overstimulation, which is one side of the equation, or boredom, which is the other side of the equation, both of which mean too much or too little of meaningful engagement for a person. So the whole beginning part of tonight's webinar was about modifying the holidays so our person can be successful. And part of that is related to this overstimulation or boredom. Excuse me. For many of our individuals who are on a dementia journey, having an environment that's too busy or too many things or too loud or too much talking at once can be triggering. But then the opposite is true also. If my person hasn't done anything throughout the day, they haven't gotten any energy out, I may start to notice by early afternoon or late afternoon or early evening, they're like kind of pent up with energy that they haven't gotten out. Third category is fear or frustration. And this covers a lot of different stuff. This may be that our person sees themselves in an earlier time in their life and they don't recognize the environment where they are. It may be that they are misperceiving their environment. So I think of often this time of year, it's suddenly dark. It's been dark for hours, it feels like. But I didn't close the curtains yet. And so now I see my reflection in the window. I recognize that it's me, but maybe my person sees and thinks that's someone. Or maybe my person sees when they get up at night to use the restroom, they see a shadow and think it's someone in the corner. So fear or frustration. Number 4 category, unfamiliar surroundings. So maybe my person doesn't recognize where they are, or wake up at night disoriented, or we're in a new place, or it's the drugstore that they've always driven to successfully, but now that it gets dark earlier, they got turned around, etc. Number 5 category is complicated tasks. And you may find for your person, a complicated task is different today than it used to be. So one thing I will often hear from families is the remote and the cell phone. Like these things that our person is trying to figure out, just way too many buttons, way too many, they end up taking it apart. But it could be a complicated object, a complicated task. And a complicated task might be that my person has always prepared lunch, or they've always made a pie for the holidays, but now they start to get mixed up and put in the quantity of salt that should be sugar, for example. Complicated tasks, the things you think about often later in the dementia journey, our person has a hard time with multi-stepped process or with sequencing. So when I got dressed this morning, I put on my undergarments and my dress and my jacket. But maybe my person puts on the jacket and then tries to put the dress over it, or the pants and then the underpants. Like it's close, but it's not quite the right order. And so there's a number of ways we can support. And I said in my opinion, there's a 6th category that's not listed here, which is how someone else approaches our person. In my work, this is something we talk about constantly. How I approach an individual will often dictate how our interaction is going to go. If I come up in a rush and I'm like, Dad, we're supposed to be at the doctor's office already. I told you to get ready. I'm all in a dither. It's probably not going to go well. Maybe my person is doing something. I'm worried. I react quickly. I come up on them and startle them. How we approach physically, like how we physically come up to our person, can impact how that goes. So we have 2 more things to share, and then I don't see any other questions, but definitely if there's anything that's jumping out at you or something you wanted to ask that you're not certain about, by all means, put in the chat. Excellent. Okay. Excuse me. So we've talked through what behavioral expressions are, common triggers for behavioral expressions. But now, like now we have to figure out what to do when they happen. Because often, or maybe not often for your person, but behavioral expressions are a part of the dementia journey. And so the Alzheimer's Association gives us this 4-part assessment tool. Number 1, detect and connect. And that just means like be curious about what might be triggering my person. Number 2, we address physical needs, pain, water, restroom, hunger, hangry, etc. Number 3, then we address emotional needs. And then number 4, I will tell you, everyone skips, but it's so important, is once we're kind of through the thick of things, we take just a moment to say what went wrong, what went well, what should I try again the next time? As we reassess and just like take a moment to say what worked, what didn't. So I forgot, this was a little bit out of order. I already talked about common dementia behavioral expressions. So anxiety, agitation, confusion, suspicion. So suspicion, my person thinks that I hid their purse or I took something, or thinks that some of the neighbor kids are coming in and stealing their whatever, shoes. Um, Suspicion could be around the environment. Somebody's in the corner. They're going to get me. Anxiety could be my person perseverating. We do all of this work to plan how we're going to modify the holidays. And we say, Dad, I'm going to pick you up Thursday afternoon. We're going to do a family thing. But I tell him on Sunday. And so now, Sunday afternoon, early Monday morning, Monday afternoon, like perseverating, like focused on it, like kind of anxiety, obsessive about it. So we might find that when we offer or when we tell our person something ahead of time, that might cause more confusion than help. So there's some strategies around that. Aggression, repetition, whether that's action, question, picking, etc. And then wandering or exploring. Oh, thank you. I did not see that message. Thank you, Jeremy. Karen says, some days I can't tell if my mom is living with dementia or not. Some days are great. And then she says something horribly mean. So I ask why, and she turns into a horribly mean gaslighter. I'm slowly learning, but it's making me crazy. I feel like I'm not normal. Then she gets on a call and sounds fine to others. Oh, Karen, that is so much. And I just want to first acknowledge you sharing that with us and asking the question. And so I'm going to share a few different things. And I also want to emphasize that you may want to reach out to the Alzheimer's Association. Jeremy and Sheila shared the helpline before. I'm going to say it again in a sec, just to talk through the details of what's going on. So I'm going to tell you the helpline. I'll repeat it again in a sec. It's 1-800-272-3900. And I'll say it again in just a sec. So there could be a number of things going on. There is a great workshop that the Alzheimer's Association offers called the 10 Warning Signs. And for anybody on the call tonight, there are a ton of live workshops like these. Some are webinars like this, others are in person. There's also pre-recorded webinars online on the alz.org site. And so one of those is the 10 warning signs, and it talks through some common signs that something may be going on with your person. So I think many of us, we hear Alzheimer's or we hear dementia and we think of memory loss, but other stuff can be clues that something might be going on with our person. And I'm going to list off some of those now. So some of those are decision making. Maybe our person is now, maybe they're managing their finances and they're suddenly giving things away, or they're saying yes to the person who knocks on the door and offers some service and then they get taken. Or they start to say they don't have a filter and they say these impulsive things or things that are odd or mean or inappropriate. You're in the line at the grocery store and they say something to the cashier about how they look and you're just mortified. That can be a warning sign. Decision making, impulse control, the ability to start an action, visual perception, depth perception. Maybe your person still drives and you notice they seem to like not see the red light until they're right up on it. Maybe you notice how they're navigating their environment. So maybe how they ambulate in their home. Maybe they seem to be having a difficulty seeing if it's a step or a flat spot. All sorts of things. Previous tasks that they had been successful with and now they struggle with. All of these can be signs that our person may be on a dementia journey, or that there may be something else that is a root cause. So, what I hear the Alzheimer's Association say when somebody says, "Oh, I'm seeing this stuff in my person. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's fine. I don't want to say anything." What I hear the association say to us is we should have our person get checked out. Sometimes we see signs in our person that are not rooted in dementia. Sometimes they're rooted in other things. If our person is ill, has an infection, a urinary tract infection, some other type of infection, sometimes that can look like dementia symptoms. If our person is depressed, that can look like dementia symptoms. If our person has a nutritional imbalance or is dehydrated, that can look like dementia. So all these sorts of things that could be going on. But I would encourage, so both for Karen and for any of us on the call tonight, if we're like, oh, I am seeing stuff in my person and I am worried, it is better to get checked. So what can happen is a person goes to their provider, and there's some strategies around that, and the Alzheimer's Association on the helpline can talk us through. But the provider is going to try to rule out other stuff that could be going on, the infection, nutritional deficits, etc. They're going to try to rule that stuff out. If we find that something fixable, that is awesome. And if we find it is not, we find it is something else going on, like maybe mild cognitive impairment or a form of dementia, then Jeremy alluded to something at the very beginning, that there are some medications right now that when they are successful at the early stage. And so I think it was tempting for many families and families of choice to just kick the can down the lane, so the ostrich put the head in the sand, to avoid taking action because those conversations are uncomfortable, right? It's hard. I worry about how do I get my person to the doctor? What will they think of me? They'll be offended, all those things. But if the provider finds that's actually something else that's fixable, that's amazing. If they find it's something that is not fixable, that may be mild cognitive impairment, that may be a form of dementia, then our person may be eligible, if they're at the early stage, for some of these new treatments. So I feel like I said a whole lot of things. If any of us are seeing some of these changes that we're concerned about, we should definitely get ourselves, if we're seeing it in ourselves, or a person, to their provider to get checked. The Alzheimer's Association is a great resource. You can call, talk through what that looks like, get an idea of even what type of provider you go to, all of this, how do you have the conversation, all of those things. And so I promised I would say the helpline again. That is 1-800-272-3900. There's also a chat function on the website, alz.org. And then there's a ton of free webinars on the site. I mentioned the 10 warning signs. The other one I'll highlight for our talk tonight is dementia conversations. And that one is all about how do I talk to my person about these tough things, like going to the doctor or stopping driving or getting power of attorney documents set up, etc. And the tip I'll share here is that for getting our person to the doctor, one of the simplest ways, if they're of a certain age and a Medicare recipient or participant, um, the Medicare annual wellness visit is a great reason to get somebody in to the doc. Karen, thank you so much for asking that question. Thank you. Okay, double checking. Excellent. Thank you. I see in the chat the helpline, the number. Good. Okay. And then is it fitting to consider persons with Alzheimer's challenges similar to toddlers and young kids who don't know how to communicate? Oh, that's such a good question. I'm going to tell you from my perspective and my colleagues. We do not compare individuals living with dementia with kids. And really for two main reasons. One, for dignity, we don't want to treat them like kids, which is not to say anything negative about kids. It's a different category. But the second thing is that our person, even if they have impacted verbal ability, decision making, etc., they are not a kid. Like this is a person who has had a full life, some accomplishments, and even if they don't have recent memories, they also have these long-term memories, like the successes they had or the challenges they overcame or the fights they got into, these big memories that they have. And so our person, whereas our child or our neighbor child or nephew, whomever, is like growing and developing, our person has this whole life history and these whole abilities that we can tap into, but they are not kids. That's what a number of us would say. The helpline. And then, okay, good. Is it useless to try? These are awesome questions. I'm so glad you all are asking. Is it useless to try to educate the person about Alzheimer's, or will that create more frustration for them? So this is a tough one to answer. So I'm going to echo again the Alzheimer's Association. I'm going to give you a few ideas, but if you call the helpline, I know somebody will be happy to talk about your specific situation and better understand what's going on. So if we're in the stage of seeing some concerns in my person, I want to get them to the doctor and get checked out, then I may choose to not raise those concerns. I may just focus on, hey, Dad, it's time for your Medicare annual wellness exam. Let's get that scheduled. In fact, I'll go with. Or I may choose to say, gosh, I got my annual exam. I saw some stuff in myself. I felt like I've been so stressed lately. I feel like I'm not really my best. Let's get you checked out as well. Let's do it together. Or we may choose to say, gosh, Dad, I'm seeing some stuff. Let's just figure this out together. So the risk we take is if we tell our person the litany of things that we're seeing, sometimes our person becomes defensive, or they say, wait to get to my age and then see how you feel. Sometimes it doesn't help us further in the journey, because in this example, which may or may not be what you're asking, like the goal is to get them to the doctor's visit to figure out what might be going on. And so the goal is not necessarily to get my person to believe that they may have a problem. Like that is not the goal. So you may find that it's helpful to share in a way that is motivating to your person. Gosh, Dad, we've always been really frank with each other. It seems like you're having a harder time managing the house lately. Why don't we, I think it's time for your wellness exam. Why don't we go together? That might be enough of motivation to get your person to go without like coming off heavy-handed. That's one idea. But in general, especially once somebody is on a journey, they've been diagnosed, we don't need to keep like pounding it into their head. Now, Dad, I told you you were diagnosed with Alzheimer's. That is generally, in general, not beneficial once your person is on the journey. But there may be times that it's helpful to position the concern or feedback or ideas in a way to get them to the next step. I hope that's helpful. Diane put in the chat the AA. Oh, good. Excellent. I was hoping you would add some AARP details, Diane, because I'm not as familiar with those. Diane put in the chat the AARP Family Caregivers Discussion Group. It's an awesome sounding board for all kinds of questions and support. Always someone who's had similar experience and can empathize and or make a helpful suggestion. Excellent. The last thing, Michelle said, helpful. I'm so glad, Michelle. And Ramona said, thank you. Explanation was helpful. Yes. Yes, exactly. I know, right? Sometimes we see in these behavioral expressions that a trigger could be, I'm sure we have all been hangry and reacted. And then there's other times that we're reacting to some other thing that's going on. So our person may be misperceiving their environment, may be hungry, may be in pain, etc. So I've talked through each of these 4 steps. I'll just say maybe a couple things about each, and then we'll close out. I think we're on to the half hour, but we'll close out early. So the first step is detect and connect. And this one is hard, I think. When our person is in the behavioral expression, it means I don't try to solve. I'm just curious. Like, what might be going on here? Wow, this is a big reaction from my person. I am surprised. I wonder what might be going on. And so I just kind of observe. I say, oh, are those pants too tight? Oh my gosh, she hasn't had water. I tried to get her to drink water yesterday. She hasn't had any. She hasn't ate today. I wonder if she's thirsty. Or gosh, I couldn't get him to, I noticed, I wonder if something's going on. It seems like his dentures might be loose. Like trying to figure out what might be going on. Now, the caveat here is we make sure we are safe and our person is safe. We're not just like, piddling around, but take a moment to just be curious what might be triggering my person. And good questions to ask if you're uncertain is what happened right before the behavioral expression? And do I notice a trend? When this happens, is it always in the evening? When this happens, is it always after I've tried to help with the shower? Is it always, like looking for what are the trends? Number 2 is address physical needs. So pain, hunger, thirsty, restroom, tired, pent up energy, etc. Also, what you'll see on the slide, medication interaction, other medical issue. Did I start to notice this happen after the drug change? Was there a change in dosage or a new med? Is there something else going on? Number 3, emotional needs. And this can be hard. Sometimes our person is upset at us, right? And I want to say, no, that's not my fault, or I didn't steal your purse. You hid it in the closet. Sometimes I want to just react and defend myself. But it is helpful to respond with empathy to our person. It doesn't mean we need to wallow in it, but sometimes just that empathetic reaction helps them to get it out. And the number 4, the last step, is just take a moment, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever you got, to say, okay, that actually worked. This time we went to the doctor and we were able to get out on time successfully. Like that's the first time in months. What did I do differently today that I'm going to make sure to do the next time? Like just take a moment to solidify what worked, what didn't. And so we've highlighted the Alzheimer's Association, the resources we've highlighted from AARP. I'm going to say 2 things I didn't highlight already, And then we can, I'm looking at the chat. I don't see anything. If Sheila or Diane have something they want to share. Two things I did not highlight from the Alzheimer's Association: support groups. Those happen in person, virtually. That is a great place, similar to what Diane shared about the online group. It's a place where you can share what's going on, get real, like practical insights from other people who are on this journey. And the other thing is what's highlighted on the page, the community resource finder. You can put in a zip code and see what types of resources are available in that zip code, whether it's where you live, your person, etc. I want to thank everybody tonight. Diane or Sheila, is there anything you would add? Or Jeremy, of course, anything you would add?
I'll jump on. First off, amazing, as always, Brenda, always, just
You're
love it. So I would just reemphasize the Facebook group, the caregiver Facebook group that ARP has. Truly, it's driven by caregivers, was monitored by ARP, but individuals share their own personal story, help each other. I mean, it's real. It's real. So I encourage you to check that. It's a private group, which is good also in that you're not going to have, people just dropping in and making rude comments. So I encourage you to do that. Brenda, every time, the second time I've been on with you, love it. I always take away something. When the travel one, it was joy in the journey. Love reading it. I still use it. And this one is validation and curiosity. Another one that I will use with my mother who's on a journey at this time. So thank you for that. So I'm going to do my thank yous to everybody, and I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy and let you close it out, Jeremy.
Well, like I said early on, it's an immense pleasure to anytime I get to hear Brenda do what she does, because I call her the greatest of all time. She's the GOAT, is what she is. So check your Instagram, Brenda. I've already posted that. So last thing I'll add in there is that this information is absolutely golden. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to process. That 24/7 helpline is your first line of defense. So if you find yourself in a situation this holiday season, you need to talk with somebody. Use it, right? Get tactics, get strategies. Go to this Facebook group that AARP has out here. Use all the tools, right? So that's my pitch. Other than that, Sheila, Diane, Brenda, everybody have a great holiday season. It's been a pleasure talking with you tonight.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.